Just moving the Zoom bar out of the place. 1 second. Right, here we go. Okay. Okay, all right, folks. Welcome to another session with me. This is part of our JavaScript for Beginners series, and we are continuing our program. This is session number, as always, a short introduction about me. This is who I am. I've been coding, I've been teaching for a long time now. I have all these Microsoft certifications and so on and
Yes,
so
yes.
forth.
Yeah, I'm okay now. Everything
Dr.
is cool.
Walson, hello, sir.
All right. Okay. That's okay. It's greetings to you, Jay. Very glad to see you this
Yes, sir.
Monday. Good
Yes, sir.
afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody else, and very pleased to see you again this Monday. I'm not going to interrupt this session. There was an issue that prevented me from getting on very early as usual. But yes, Jay, very, very pleased to see you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
Yes, sir.
right.
So should I resume then?
Yes, you may proceed now.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Once again, welcome, Dr. Walson. Yes, sir. And folks, so yeah, this is who I am. I've been teaching, tutoring, and all that, and all these certifications and stuff like that. So that's about me. And today we are continuing our Angular discussion. Okay. And today specifically, folks, I want to jump in. Today, normally I do a lot of coding and get into the nitty-gritties and so on. Today, before we start the next part, we are kind of at the, I would say, the last, if this is like a three-part structure, we are in the last final third structure of our training here, where we are we are gonna jump into building the full stack applications with Angular and using JavaScript for backend and JavaScript for front end. That is what we are doing. So before now, in this session, I'll have to explain some theoretical concepts, some ideas that I'll have to share with you before we can jump in to start showcasing you a lot of things. So this session will be a little bit of theory, so not much coding to show this one. And then the next session, we get back to implementing the ideas that we discussed today. So welcome. As always, I have a one sheet document. Okay. I will share that to you guys right now in the chat box. Of course, I also share the file again at the end of the session also. So let me quickly go ahead and give that to you. Okay, here we go. This is the one sheet document. It's there in the Zoom chat now. Um, Please remember, guys, the chat, it disappears after the chat is over. So those of you who are already online, please download the document right away. As usual, the one sheet document, it contains a summary of all the sessions I have done and up till today, with important links, notes, and everything. Okay, every session I update what I'm doing, what is going on, and so on. So it's like a summary of all our sessions with essential links and everything. So please do download that. So right then, so today, as I mentioned, there are some key things I want to talk about today. So I want to go into the theory aspects of what you see on the slide right now. Now, I already discussed what full stack development is. Full stack is where you develop both front end as well as back end. I've spent some time talking about the explanation about full stack. I have also showed a demo project with full stack already. So today I want to go again Angular. We have spent a lot of time on Angular UI as well. Item number 2, where you build UIs with Angular. We spent quite some time on that. Now, next in the remaining sessions, today these topics I want to go into on a surface level, and then we'll dig deeper into it in the future sessions. I would like to talk about a little bit about Node.js and Express.js. I want to spend some time talking about API communication, especially the HTTP methods that we'll be building in the future sessions. I want to spend some time talking about the databases we plan to use. So this is again, in my plan is, even the full stack application we are going to build, I thought about this. I thought about this and realized, okay, I think we should have at least two databases, SQLite and MongoDB. SQLite is a local database, so it runs locally on your computer, which will make it easy for you to practice and run my code as it is without any external connections. But then at the same time, I thought I'll stop there. But then I realized, still though, you also need to have some kind of exposure to a live online database. So there are a lot of options when it comes to databases. And I decided to go with MongoDB because MongoDB has a free option where anybody with a free account, they can create free MongoDB databases for usage. So I really did think about that a lot and realized, okay, it doesn't have to be one of two. So the backend we'll build will use both of them. And as a student, you, as per your um, flexibility, as per your convenience, you can choose one of those two databases. So we'll go into detail into that later and also in the future sessions. Next, Swagger again is something I have already shown, and that is again something which we'll build in the future sessions and so on. And at the end of the session, before I take questions and things like that, I will go ahead and give you some best practices that you need to remember when you're building the full stack apps, right? So these are the things we are going to touch upon today. So no project showing today, no code today, like we always do. So this is like a theory session. So let's go here. The first thing is, so what is full stack web development? So we have talked about this before, but we'll just go. Let me just open my Paint software here. So just to so what happens really, right? So I'm drawing with my mouse and keyboard, so just bear with me. So what you do is you go ahead and build your web apps. So this is going to be your, let's say this is your front end. So this is going to be your web. Again, I'm drawing with the mouse, so please, it's not as clear as I want it to be. Right, so you have your web app. Now this is also, what we call as the front end, right? So this will be your Angular. Okay, you already seen Angular projects in the previous training sessions, so that's all good. And then this web app will communicate with the backend, which is the web API. So here we go. So this is the next part that we'll start from the next session with the coding and everything. So this is going to be our web API. Okay, so now here we will here in the orange color one, the front end, we are using Angular, and in the web API we are using Node.js with Express.js. So Node.js is the engine, the technology we are using, and Express.js is going to be the actual, like the library, the package that we are going to use to go ahead and build the web API. So front end is Angular, whereas web API backend is going to be Node.js and Express.js. So that's going to be the back end. So that is something we'll go in depth in the future sessions. Now, the good thing about this is both in the front end and the back end, we'll be using the same programming language. In Angular, we are using JavaScript. The same JavaScript will be used in the back end as well. This is one of the benefits. This is one of the reasons why we decided to go with the Angular and Express.js, because using the same programming language, JavaScript, we are able to build both front end and back end. Now here, the third focus. So the focus Angular, we already spent enough time, so that is fine. Now the next focus is going to be web API using Node.js and Express.js, and there is going to be another focus. So that is going to be the database. Okay, so finally we have reached a stage where we are in a position to go deeper and start building a software that will remember and store all the data. So that is where we have the database as well. So, and in database, as I mentioned in my slide, I'm actually thinking, not thinking, I've already decided that I'll use both SQLite and MongoDB so that we have a option for students who, those who want to do a local database, they can just use SQLite. Those who want to do the online database, they can do MongoDB as well. It does add a layer of complexity, but I think we can manage it, and it is worth having that complexity. So it gives you the flexibility to run it locally and also make it like an online thing. So that's really nice. So anyway, so coming back, so these are the main components we are going to be looking on. So how does the relationship work here? So the web app, the Angular web app, will get in touch with the web API, to send requests for data, and then the web API will respond with whatever data it wants. And that is where we have JSON. You already seen JSON. Okay, so you've seen JSON, but you haven't seen how it gets generated. So that is where, the web API sessions, which will begin from the next session, we'll find out how the JSON actually gets created and everything. And second thing is the data itself, it will be stored in the database. So that is another area of focus for us. How does the back end, the Express.js and Node.js, go ahead and talk to the database, store data? How is the table structure? How do the rows get inserted? How are the rows edited, updated, deleted? How do you create multiple tables? How do you work with multiple databases? So that is the part. So this one, the web API, will be the focus for the next few sessions. And simultaneously, so we can't just do web API alone. We have to do both web API and the database simultaneously. So this is going to be this whole thing. Once you are able to do these three things, that means you are in that full stack scenario that we are talking about. So front end plus back end. Now, one more thing I haven't yet decided on that yet is I also want to see. Right now I want to keep it simple, but as the sessions go by, I also want to introduce some basic authentication where you're able to register a user, log in as a user, get token, do some roles. So I do have some ideas about doing that. So, but right now I haven't included that in the slide yet, but I do have that plan in my mind. So once we do all this, then as a last step, I do plan to introduce authentication as well, where we'll be using an authentication called OAuth. That is the standard authentication system we use in all the projects. So I do have ideas for that. I haven't mentioned that here, but for now, this is the foundational stuff, right? So we'll do the authentication part later. So that is what I mean when I say full stack web development, right? Front end, we already discussed about the Angular. Back end is the focus from the future sessions, where we'll be showing you how to do what is the business logic, what is a server, what is API, and obviously why should you learn full stack? What is the point of it? Now, the reason is, again, obviously a lot of things have already changed in the career as a software developer. In the olden days, when I say olden days, I'm talking 10 years ago or something, we used to have like back-end developer, we used to have front-end developers and stuff like that, but that is no longer the case. So today, when you go to the job market and apply for jobs and everything, even now, like when I do training and everything, for example, I mentioned to you guys in the last week, so in the last session, that I was doing like training for a Indian ID company as a corporate trainer and everything. There also I was teaching the full stack. So it is now expected for a while now, for 5 to 10 years now, it is expected that a developer will be able to build both front end and back end. So that is where, that is why you need to learn full stack. So there is no way around it. That's what we call a complete web app. So let's go it then. So Angular, we already spent a lot of time on it. You already know what is Angular. You already know that it is very popular. It uses TypeScript components, modules. So we already touched upon Angular on multiple sessions. So again, the Angular commands, everything we have gone in depth. So I just put it there because I can't discuss full stack without mentioning this slide. So so you already know this. We already spent some time on this. It's already there in the previous record session. So we're going to skip past that. So let's go deep into this one. So line by line then. So backend, that is where you have your Swagger. That is where you have your API endpoints. So here, a Node.js and Express.js, right one. So when we talk about any kind of technology, there's always a engine that runs everything. Even Angular JS, if you remember the Angular JS sessions, we would do something like npm install. We'll do something like node dash v. We will use something like, npm run. So where all these commands are coming from, that is the engine. Okay, that it'll take your Angular project and run it. So that engine is, the runtime. I like to use the word engine, but runtime is the official word. Node.js is the runtime. It's like the engine. If you have a vehicle, if you have a car, if you have a bike, or even a cycle, for example, the core engine, that is what Node.js is. So Node.js is a JavaScript runtime for server-side programming. Now, it is also something on top of which Angular and other frameworks run as well. But Node.js was, primarily is, it is useful to run JavaScript in the backend. So the key thing about this is it does what is called as asynchronous handling asynchronous action. So I will go deep into this when we start building the web API. But for now, asynchronous means something that happens with a delay, right? So, for example, right now I am talking to you. So, let's say when somebody pops up and Zoom will give me a notification and somebody is waiting to join us something. And then I look at the notification, Dr. Walson looks at the notification, and then, he will go ahead and admit the student into the session. So notification comes and then I see it. Dr. Walson sees it, and there is a delay. There is some time it takes for a response to happen and the student to come inside. See, that is called asynchronous. So it takes some time for that task to be completed. So that is called asynchronous. So synchronous is where it is like immediate, right? Like, for example, at the end of the session we have the Q&A, and once the person is talking to me, they ask a question, I will immediately respond. So in a way, I mean, there's some delay there as well, but it's not like there's a long delay. It's like the person gives the question, immediately I will answer. So that would be synchronous, right? So synchronous, something that happens immediately. Asynchronous, something that happens with some delay because there is some processing involved. There is some time it takes to take care of that task. So that is what Node.js does. So in programming, so when you try to load a web page, when you try to do, or when you, or like even right now on Zoom, when you come to the Zoom link, you click on it, you open, and then you enter your code and everything, or they click on the link, it takes some time for the data to be processed. So that is what we mean by the processing the task asynchronously. So Node.js is very good at taking care of that. Next, Express.js. So we'll remember, I'm just giving you introduction today. We'll go deep into it in the coding sessions as usual from the next session. Today is just theory. Express.js is a very basic, beginner friendly framework that will help us build the web API. So that is what Express.js is. Like how you have AngularJS, which is a framework that helps you build your front end website. The Express.js is the framework on the backend that will help you build our web API. It also has facilities to connect with the database. It has facilities to give us all the HTTP methods and everything. So that is what Express.js is. So think of it this way: front end, AngularJS; backend, Express.js. Next, so the good thing about Express.js, it is very, very minimal, right? It's very bare bones, which means it's good enough for our basic learning. And at the same time, if tomorrow, if you wish to take it to the next level, if you want to go deeper, then Express.js has, you can add on so many things to Express.js to get additional features. So in that way, Express.js is good for simple things, but it can also scale up to maximum things as well. And of course, of all this, combine these things, it can handle asynchronous tasks. It is a minimal framework and everything. It can talk to databases. It supports all the HTTP framework, which means it will help us build our web API. And there is a project structure here. It has facilities, like how in Angular JS, it follows the MVC formula. It has components. It has it has the MVC format for models, for views and controllers and data binding and everything. Similarly, in Express.js also, we do follow a standard project structure. We have separate folders for roots where we'll write roots. Roots are again things like slash. You'll see the roots later. Roots are essentially like in a website. When you go, you have different roots that have all the root information goes to the roots folder. Controllers is where we put all our business logic. Like if you're trying to get some rows when you do a search or something, it goes to the database, finds it. Where do you write that code? You write that code in controllers. Models are, again, database models. Models is short for database models. Models is how you connect your information on the web API with your table data in your database. So that is what the models is about. So it does have a very standard project structure, which makes it easy for you to learn, and it also makes it easy for you to discuss with online and ask questions, and later when you build projects, it matches with your office project and things like that. So this is the main thing about the Node.js and Express.js. Next, we will be using, we have to build the standard HTTP methods in our web API. So here we call them RESTful APIs. Okay, RESTful is really the standard way of saying, it's like asynchronous situation where you make a request, the data, the controller passes on the information to the database, gets the database objects, and then converts that into JSON. So whenever you use web APIs and you use JSON format, that becomes your RESTful APIs. Next, what are the standard HTTP methods that we will be building, right? First, you have the get method. The get method, as the name indicates, it helps you get information. It helps you get a single row of data. It can help you get multiple rows of data. When we implement search features, so again, we will pass some kind of a parameter in the URL. Then based on the parameter, we'll be able to get specific rows. So let's say, for example, we are building an API with a list of to-do items. That's usually the basic project, to-do items API. So let's say there are like some 100 to-dos, and you want to find out all the to-do items which are on Monday or something. So again, so get will be used to get all the to-do items which have Monday somewhere in the row. So that is what get is about. Essentially, like the name, like get something, get stuff. So that's what get is. Get the data from the database. Next HTTP method is post. So post means you are, like you're sending a letter, post. I mean, I don't know if people send letters anymore, but I do send like official work stuff and all. I still have to send post sometimes, like to the government or something. But yeah, so yeah, post, post is where you are taking data and then submitting the data to the backend. So post is very important. Like again, when you're searching. So again, we are, posting. I also, like if you're trying to log in, that is also post, because you are sending your username and password information, and then that, based on that, you will be authenticated, and then a response token will be sent. That is another example of post. Or if you're let's say if we are building a simple project, like where we have to add some data, like in the to-do items, we are adding some items, we have to fill a form, and then you have the submit button. You click on submit, then submit. That is also an example of a post. So there you go. So that is post. Next is put. I know it's a lot of words, folks. Luckily this session is getting recorded, so you can watch the recording again, and we'll build each and every one of them, in our future sessions. So we'll go deep into it later. Even if things are confusing to you, suddenly all these words, you don't have to remember. It's all right. Oh, somebody is drawing something. I don't know if I can disable it. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Clear all drawings. Okay, all right, guys. Yes, Dr. Watson, I don't know if there's a way to disable the drawings, or again, somebody's drawing again.
But now you know how to disable that on your end. I don't have that feature on my system. Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen,
Oh,
please
disable annotation for others. I got it. I got it, Professor. Sorry.
try your
Okay.
very best, brothers and sisters, not to
Yes, yes.
click on your everybody's mouse. Do not use it, please, because whenever you do, there is a mark on Dr. J's screen, so which causes some type of disruption. So please don't do that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. There was an option to disable, Professor, so I guess it's taken care of.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
Now, so post then. Post is something we use whenever we want to send data to the database. Next is put. Now, post and put are kind of similar in that in both cases, we are trying to send data to the database. But put is like you already have some data, and then you're trying to update it. Okay, so again, going back to the to-do item example, so you have a to-do item like, okay, Monday you're going to study for 2 hours or something. That is the to-do item. It's already there in the system. Now you want to completely replace that information, like totally just replace it, not delete it, but replace it. So that is when we use put, where you want to update the data completely. So it's already there. You're taking it, editing all the details, and putting it back. It's like you have a notebook, you've written something, you're taking the notebook, erasing everything. The notebook is still there, and you're writing something new and then putting it back. So that is put. Patch is also similar to put and post, but patch is different in the sense that here you have some data in the database, but you are only editing partially. So again, if the to-do item, let's say you have a to-do item that says Monday you're going to study for 2 hours, you want to change that 2 hours to say 4 hours. So Monday is still Monday, studying is still studying, but there would be a column called time or number of hours. That was 2 hours. So you are only changing that time column from 2 hours to 4 hours. So that would be patch, right? Now remember, you can do both put and patch with post. It's not end of the world if you don't do it. But there are specific standards and expectations when you're building a software. So you just roll with it. And next is the delete endpoint. So as you can imagine or assume from the spelling, delete endpoint is where you are essentially deleting that entire data item. So for example, again, you're building a to-do item backend API and you are like, okay, so Monday I'm going to study for 2 hours. Something happened on the Monday, maybe some personal emergency and you're not able to study. So you want to get rid of that item. So that is where we have the delete item. So these are the main endpoints we'll be building. Getting things, post, sending things, new things, put, replacing things which are already there, patch, replacing some things, not and keeping other things as they are, and finally delete for deleting things. And there are a lot of these status codes. Again, we'll use all these status codes when you're building the API. 200 is a status code, which means everything is okay. 201 means something was created. 44 means not found, and like this there's a very long list of error codes or status codes. We won't be using all of them, but some of them, yes, definitely we'll be using. Right, then, so let's keep going to the next step. Okay, now as I mentioned, so this is something which I had to think a bit. Okay, because before I start, like as before every session I build code, right? I build code for the session, I share it with you, and I have to build it first and all that. So now that we have reached the point of building the web API, the big question, as you saw in the drawing, the big question here is what to do about the database. Right. Now, here I've been doing AI sessions for a long time now, right? I know some students have access to some online facilities, other students may not have access to it. So this was like a pragmatic thing, like a practical thing I had to think about. Like, do I just go with MongoDB? And what if there are some folks who are not able to create database online in the cloud? Then they won't be able to run my project. Now that becomes an issue. Okay. And then I was like, okay, then we'll only have the local database. So that will be SQLite. But then that'll only run locally. What if you want a little bit of more something online as well? So I realized, okay, you know what? Let's have both. Okay. So I decided, okay, whenever we build a web API, we'll build both, so that only the database things will be different. I mean, there'll still be two projects, one project which is using SQLite and another project which will be using MongoDB. But again, think about this way. So it's only this part here. So this code, like if you think of this is the amount of code we are writing. So about 90% would be the same. It's just the 10% code, which is related to the database, will be a little bit different for the SQLite. It'll be a little bit different for the MongoDB. Otherwise, the code will be 90% the same. So that way, we take care of both type of students who just want to use locally and also who want to use online. And in my experience, whenever I am working on a project or whenever I am doing a training session, I always teach both SQLite and an online database. So why is that? Because a lot of times you're just practicing on your laptop, locally. So you want to practice, 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 and that makes sense. So you need to know how to use a local database. Second, when you're ready to take it to the next level, you want to change your code to go from a local database to an online database. So that is where you need to know how to use an online database. So even if I was, even if you don't have the limitations of not being able to or being able to get an online database, it is still good common sense approach to learning that always a minimum of two databases. You know a local database and you should know an online database. So that is what I give you here, my dear students. And of course, we will go deep into it in the future session with the code and everything. But today I want to explain to you, when you watch the recording and when the session comes on SQLite, when the session comes on MongoDB, and the sessions begin on building the web API, you will know, oh, this is why he is using both database. So when I share with you the project code in the future sessions, I will always share with you two projects. They're both doing the same thing, but the only thing is one of them is the SQLite version, the other one is the MongoDB version. And it's always a good idea that you know both of them. So there you go. That is why we'll be using two databases, and you can pick and choose which one you like. Okay. And then as you learn, you learn both eventually, right? Second, now SQLite, what is SQLite then? So SQLite is again for local development. It's very lightweight. It's very, very lightweight. It runs directly on the machine. And as you can see, it's very good for learning, small projects, and prototyping. It's local development. That is a big, big plus point. Very useful in your learning and practicing and all that. Next, MongoDB is a standard online enterprise level database. It's available on the cloud. Now, there are so many different cloud databases available. I always choose MongoDB mainly because it is free. You don't have to pay for it, at least not for learning projects. So MongoDB uses what is called as NoSQL format. We'll discuss more about what NoSQL is in the future session when we have one dedicated session about MongoDB, right? Next, it is scalable, it is flexible schema. Now we'll talk about schema later, but I don't want to get into that details about flexible and schema right now. Okay. And as I mentioned, it is used by enterprise development and everything. So whether it is a small project, big project, it is very, very good. And it will really look good on your resume when you mention that you have experience working with SQLite, and you have experience working with MongoDB. So that is why we are going to use both the databases. So of course, before we, yes, next thing is, yes, Swagger. I've shown you Swagger before. Whenever I'm showing you Angular projects, I believe I've already shown you some web API projects. We didn't go deep into it. We didn't build it or anything, but I did show you backend projects, because without backend, front end will not run. So that is where, you already saw Swagger. So still, now that we are about to build Swagger, so what is Swagger? Swagger is your interactive documentation for your web API, right? So when we build endpoints, we should be able to test them. We should be able to use them. And if we get any errors, we should be able to debug the error and fix it as well. So Swagger plays a very important role in any backend development. So that is why we are using Swagger. Anyway, it is the industry standard for REST documentation. So we have to use Swagger. We don't have a choice. Of course, if we want to, we can skip Swagger, but I don't want to skip Swagger. It is a very essential developer skill. You must know how to build Swagger, how to use Swagger, how to add Swagger. So it is needed. So definitely in our full stack project, we will be building and adding Swagger. You already seen Swagger before, but you only saw it. You didn't build it. So that is what we are going to do now in the future sessions. Finally, guys, before we come to the end of this session, what are some standard best practices? So I will be following these practices in in the demo project. I'm already doing it. Whenever I share with you any code like Angular and other things, I'm already following these best practices. But because it's backend, there are some additional things we have to follow. So let's go ahead and get these best practices. So obviously, first thing is, we have to maintain code quality. That means we have to use consistent formatting, comments, linters. So we'll go to these things later. Already, remember, we're already doing this in our Angular project, so we will continue to do this in the future as well. Next thing is, we have to do error handling. So error handling is something which is even more important when in the backend rather than front end, because backend is where there is chance of more things going wrong. So that is, again, we have to use a lot of try catch facilities, handle errors, give appropriate responses. So we will be doing that as well. So again, continuing with error handling, we have to provide useful error messages, because okay, of course, most of the time when you're working with an API, you'll get what you're expecting, but sometimes it could be a database error, it could be a network error, or it could be a user error. There could be many different kind of errors. So where it is important, we return error codes, proper error codes when something goes wrong. So for example, if something is not found, we have to return 404. Let's say we start using authentication and something is not authenticated, we have to give 401, not allowed. So stuff like that. Next thing is, we have to do, because we are dealing with databases, we have to make sure that whatever data comes from the front end is validated, and we also have to clean up the input. When I say sanitize, it means you have to clear unnecessary spaces, check for spelling mistake, check for bad words, things like that. That is what security, validation, and sanitation is all about. Next thing is, we have to use what is called as environment variables. For example, when you start using MongoDB or even SQLite database, we'll have something like connection strings. So these are the kind of things you want to put it in your environment variables, and there should be a way to keep it secure and things like that. Next thing is version control. Now that is where GitHub, I am already using Git. We have made many sessions on GitHub right here in AIU. So definitely we will be using, I will be using Git. I also ask you to use Git, because Git is something you use on your computer. So it's up to you to use Git, and I hope you will do it. We have spent so many sessions on GitHub, and obviously every time I do something, I will be using GitHub as well. Next thing is, we must have testing, like unit testing, test different methods, test different controllers, integration test, and all that. Yes, and obviously the last thing is, yes, you have to keep learning. Now I only get to see you once a month, for 45 minutes. That's about it. Okay, so I try to compress as much as possible I can into each session. I try to give you whatever code I can, but that is only like a small drop in an ocean. So it is for you to keep learning, learning new things. Go to the official documentation. I have my GitHub community as well. Ask questions, stuff like that, and take my project and run it and experiment with it. So yeah, keep learning. I mean it is not a best practice. It is something I say in every session, but it is kind of like something that all of us should be doing anyway. So those are the best practices. There's no project demo today, as I mentioned in the beginning. This was just to give you an idea, like all the things that are coming at you in the next few sessions, right? So before we open the floor for questions, so as always, guys, remember, so we are doing full stack development. We've already seen a lot of Angular. Now we are about to begin the backend stuff. In the backend, we are going to be using Node.js. With Express.js, we have to learn how to build all these HTTP methods. All these things are useful and important. We'll also learn about different status codes. And the main thing is we are finally going to start learning how to use databases. And I want to this is something I do all the time anyway. So obviously, AIU students, I want you guys also to know both databases, one local, one online, so SQLite and MongoDB. And you have seen Swagger documentation already, but I haven't shown you how to build it. So that is another thing we'll have session included in the future session. And these are all the best practices. And today there is no demo. Today is a discussion session only. So I don't have anything right now. But you've already seen a lot. I already given you a lot of projects in the past sessions. So finally, there you go, guys. So this is where I will Dr. Watson, yes, sir. If anyone has any questions, sir, we can begin now.